Welcome to this latest focusIR CEO interview. The CEO and indeed the founder that I'm speaking to today is Tony Burt from East Imperial. It is a New Zealand-based premium mixer company that is listed here on the main board in London. And Tony, it is fantastic to see you again. I haven't personally spoken to you since around about November of 2022. And between now and then, we have had the entire 2023, and it was a little bit of a tough year for the business. We've got plenty of investor questions to get through today. So I'm going to start by asking, what were your impressions of 2023, and how confident do you think that investors should feel in your stewardship of the business as we look to the future?
Yeah, well, nice to see you again, Tom, and nice to be reconnected. I don't think, we've said anything else but that 2023 was a tough year for the business. I think we underestimated the effect of, not having working capital for 4 or 5 months was going to have. Particularly once we did get the deal, the convertible note away sort of late July, early August, just to get the business back up and running to the cadence it was before we had to slow things down. So what I was pleased to see that, start returning in Q4. And that momentum's gone into Q1 2024. Yeah, so 2023 was a tough year, and we've made that very clear. And I think a lot of investors know, and shareholders and the market knows why that actually was, due to the delay in getting the round of funding. We are starting to make some good progress on the sales side. We laid out the strategy late last year in December, with our focus being very much on Tier 1 and Tier 2 accounts in our key strategic regions of Asia-Pacific and the US. And we've been making some really good progress on those Tier 1 and Tier 2 account wins. And a lot of those we've been announcing recently, notwithstanding the Galaxy Entertainment Group in Macau, but also the ones we've been winning in the US, like the Mondrian Hotel, Mandarin Oriental in Miami, and also a couple of intercontinentals, one in Amsterdam and Auckland. So, it was a tough year, but what is pleasing to see is that Q4, as I said, has seen somewhat of a momentum shift, and that's gone into Q1.
Thank you very much indeed, Tony. So I did warn you that the questions were not going to be in any particular order, but one of the ones that people were keen to get a better sense of was, given that you do have this strong strategic partner now, are you going to take the company private again and abandon us here in London?
Short answer to that is no. I think like most small companies listed in the UK or any similar stock markets, even if it was here in New Zealand or Australia, we feel somewhat unloved and undervalued. And I think being quoted has really done us no favours, particularly over the last couple of years or year and a half or so. Had to listen, hindsight's 2020, and maybe if we do look back, we may have listed too soon. It has been an expensive diversion away from the main job of rebuilding and growing the business. But if we can make progress to plan, as we're starting to do now, and being a public company does come with a whole host of other benefits, greater profile and access to capital, not only for organic growth, but, if we wanted to do things like acquisition. Now, we're far away from that at the moment, but we don't intend to withdraw from the market anytime soon, and we still do see significant benefit for being listed.
Very good. Well, one of the benefits that people do tend to typically seek in these situations is access to funding. Obviously, how do you feel about your funding situation at the moment? And are you on the lookout, considering that you have had a relatively strong start to the year operationally, as you put it, for a bit more money?
Yeah, of course. First and foremost, we do have a major group of shareholders that remain very supportive, large shareholders, and their preference, as is ours, is to continue to explore further debt options for our funding. The board shares this wish as well, to avoid any further dilution where possible, and to protect the position of the existing shareholders. So, yeah, we're very much in the same camp, but that we're looking at more undilutive options for shareholders, and very much our preferred path is actually debt, and those are the ones we're exploring at the moment.
I suppose one interesting feature of the business is that those fruits, as you call them, are quite widely distributed geographically. You've made a big play in your latest trading update about the fact that you've had client wins in Europe and in Asia, and obviously you mentioned there about the US being a real focus now as well. So how much of your focus day to day is on acquiring new business, Tony?
Myself personally, probably not as much as I'd like to. The team is 100% focused on account sales, but it's also, I think it's important to say it's not only about acquisition, it's about retention as well. It's a competitive market out there now, and we've got a number of competitors that will try and snap at our heels in terms of some of the listings and the enviable listings that we've got. So for me, being a marketer prior to this, it's not only about acquisition, it's about retention. So we are 100% focused on that in the US. And as I've said before, just earlier, and we're starting to see those results come through. China is very much the same. We've got a great strategic partner there now, who's starting to make some headway with the Galaxy Entertainment Group in Macau and a few others to follow. So we're really are very much focused on the sales push. The ones that we mentioned in Europe are somewhat low touch to us. Those are just really on the strength of our relationships with some of those hotel groups that we're starting to see the benefits of the way we've serviced them in other territories and starting to pick up business in Europe. But Europe still is a very low touch, a soft touch market for us. It's not our main strategic focus. It still remains very much in the Asia Pacific and the US regions.
And what does that balance look like between Asia Pacific and the US, obviously, because most people are, they always tend to see, don't they, the US as really being the golden egg that they're going to be going after. But you have had this focus on Asia in the past, maybe because of the proximity to New Zealand. So do you think that the US is the future of the business?
Yeah, we have done for a wee while now. We've had a couple of hiccups, like a global pandemic and then the supply chain challenges that soon followed. But the US has always been strategic, not always, but has been for about 5 years now, a strategic focus to us. And we've made some good headways into some of the key regions there. Asia Pacific makes up about 50% of our business and has done for some time now. The US has fluctuated between sort of 15 to sort of 25% of our business. But we foresee that the US will be a greater contributor to overall revenue over the next couple of years as we start to grow our placements and outlets and Tier 1 and Tier 2 accounts there. 5 or 10% of our business is still direct to consumer, and the rest is made up of the Middle East and Europe.
How confident are you in the team you've got now? And if presumably you are feeling confident in the team you've got there, why is that?
Yeah, I'm feeling really confident in the team. We've had to make a couple of changes as we've announced on the finance side, and I'm happy to have Graham Duncan come in as CFO, and we just had our new financial controller start today. So I'm really confident about the team we've pulled together on that side of the business. On the sales side of the business, I think Yaron, overseeing US Commercial Director in the US, is 100% the right guy for us. He's got industry experience, category experience like no other in that market. And with his experience and connections, we've managed to pull together a really strong team in the US. And as I've said just earlier, it's taken us a wee while to collate that team over the last 4 or 5 months. But as I said, we're starting to see the benefit of their experience and their connections. New Zealand's our home market. It's our largest market. We have an incredible distributor here, very strong relationship with that family and that business. So it will always and continue to be a strong contributor in the home market, as you'd expect. With a strategic investor like INL in China, who is also our distributor in China, we obviously have a good relationship there as well. I've often talked about distribution, and distribution is everything in this game. And, it's also about the relationship you have with your distributors. And, that's not something you can just turn on straight away. And it's taken us a wee while over time to build those relationships. I'm feeling very confident, not only with the team we've got, but also the distributing relationships we have as well.
I'm going to take you back to the beginning of the interview now, Tony. And you talked about the headway that you made during the fourth quarter of last year, the margin improvement program, obviously something that investors are pleased to see and are expecting more from. You've mentioned you are hoping to reach cash break-even by the end of this calendar year. So what role is that margin improvement program going to play in getting you to that quite ambitious target?
Well, it's front and center, really. We started putting a lot of that in place last year. Again, like all things, it's taken a little time, to shift people to things like FOB shipping terms for majority of our distributing partners globally now, just to shorten our cash cycle. Really taking out steps in our logistics and supply chain as well, so less handling by ourselves and less 3PLs. Over the last couple of years, it's really been the logistics part of the business which has really hurt our margins, and also the inflationary side as well, that part of the business has actually experienced. So, we've taken significant steps. I'm really pleased to see the improvement that we saw in Q4, but also going into January and hopefully February, and long may continue. There are still things where we're working through that will continue to improve that margin, and we're still confident that we'll be able to reach break-even in Q4 of this year.
I know one thing that people are always very keen to get a sense of, Tony, in these interviews is the specifics. So is there anything that you think you can identify or even just hint at perhaps about the remaining fat in the business that you think you can still improve, let's say?
Yeah, I mean, I've obviously talked about FOB and the shipping side of the business. We gave New Zealand the first time ever a 13% price increase in July the 1st last year. So, that really helped in this region, given that it's a significant contributor to our overall revenue. Other areas that we've been, there will be some other price increases in different regions where we think the brand elasticity is there and allows us to do so. So we'll be looking at that probably in Q2 and Q3 this year. There are other parts of the business which we're looking to improve upon, like packaging and labeling. But also, we moving to FOB shipping terms, we're actually the absolute utopia for us is to actually produce to order. So we're producing to order. It's a hard sell. We're not having to store product or to keep it in any warehouses, and from that we're going to make increased margins. So there's a myriad of things that are going on in the background, and I can tell you now that we're starting to see the benefit of that in the last quarter, but also into this year as well.
Just finally, Tony, you mentioned there are a myriad of things going on there. Which of them do you think is the one that you are most excited about? And really, if you had to pick one among all of them, is the thing that you're really pinning your hopes on at the moment for 2024?
I think, make no doubt about it, I think Asia Pacific, I think probably like a lot of Europe is still somewhat recovering from a cost of living crisis and inflation. And New Zealand's inflation still remains stubbornly high. And so, hospitality in the industry is actually relatively soft. We're still continuing to do quite well in terms of sales in this region. But I think what we're most excited about is we're somewhat resistant to that in the US. And I'm just really excited about some of the accounts we're winning over there, the level of the accounts we're winning there, and the story that we're telling, and people understanding the story we're telling about being really the only super premium option available in the market, in a market which is becoming increasingly commoditized by a couple of major players. For us to be seen as the kind of the super premium option is exactly where we want to be. And I just think that opportunity is going to continue to grow, particularly in the North America market for us.
I appreciate you taking the time to come and talk to us today, Tony, and let me wish you the very best of luck for this year. I'm sure we'll get plenty more updates from you, but until the next one, all the very best to you.
Thank you, Tom. Thanks for your time.